Welcome to Redemption. You may have a seat. Hey, my name is Corey. I'm the lead pastor here at Redemption, and I just want to say welcome. Welcome to all of our first-time guests. If we can, go ahead and give it up for them. Yeah, thank you so much for those of you who are with us for the first time. Just thankful that you're here today. And we have a couple faces that are returning, and that's awesome. We're so glad that you're here. We believe that it can definitely be scary to find a new church, and our goal is to limit that time for you. And so we're thankful that you're here. We know there's a lot that goes into finding a new church. The drive, the pastors preaching, the worship, the kids ministry, our people friendly and hospitable, all of those things. But we believe this, that here at Redemption, there's going to be two things that you're going to experience at Redemption. Number one is the presence of God. That's his promise to us, not our hope for him. He's here every Sunday morning, whether you're here or not, right? But we would love for you to come here and meet him along this time or during this time. But then the second thing is that we believe that you're going to experience the nicest people in all of St. Louis. And that's been the case over and over and over again. And so we're so thankful for our volunteers. Let's go ahead and give it up for our volunteers. Yeah. Yeah, the people that continually serve here at Redemption are just incredible people. We had, this past Friday, we had a service for a young man who had passed away in our church, and we had volunteers, we had church people, church families that were here just kind of serving along in that service, and then they were also here this morning serving to make sure that you are welcomed and loved, and it's just, we have a unique church in so many ways, and I'm just so thankful for the people of Redemption, so thanks for being who you are. All right, well, Redemption, let's jump into week 2 in the series Chasing Carrots. Today, what we're talking about is specifically the pleasure seeker, King Solomon. Last week, we talked about King Saul, who was the people pleaser. Week 3, next week, we're talking about King Ahab, who is the control freak. And week 4, we're going to be talking about the idol maker, who is Jeroboam. Casey's going to be preaching during that week. But people pleasing, pleasure seeking, control freaking, and idol making. And here's the reality is every one of us, we suffer from one of those 4 things, I think. I think that every one of us, we struggle with chasing those carrots, the carrots of sin in our lives. And in this series specifically is Chasing Carrots, how ancient kings show us the pitfalls of the modern life. Because what they chased then, we also chase today. The idea of chasing carrots comes from folklore or cartoons, right? It comes from this idea right here, yeah. It comes from the idea that they would take a carrot and they would put it out in front of a rabbit or put it out in front of a horse, and they would lead the rabbit or lead the horse around by the carrot. And the whole idea of the carrot and chasing carrots, the whole idea is that as they would walk, they would constantly be out of reach or out of grasp for what they wanted. And this is what we do. This is the pursuit of our life, that we often go after the things that we can't get, the things that we can't achieve, the things that we want so badly of, or we want just one more of, but we can never get it, or we can never get there, we can never achieve it. Now, parents, real quick, as we talk about today, pleasure seeking, I just want to let you know, today's basically a PG sermon, okay? You need to know that, because when it comes down to Solomon, the reality is there's a lot in his life that is definitely not PG, and so you can look that up. But he is, today is pretty docile, okay? Let's go ahead and look at our guide today. Today, we're going to be looking at King Solomon. I want to look at the guide of King Solomon, or look at him as our guide, and kind of learn a little bit about him before we go into the scripture today, okay? So the first thing that we know about King Solomon is that he's a king. Second thing we know is that he is the son of King David, and so he is his predecessor. He took the throne at 20 years old, and then he reigned for 40 years as a king. He was pretty good as a king for the majority of his reign, and then things kind of went south at a time. The interesting thing about King Solomon is he took the throne at a time where the kingdom was rich with promise, and it was high in expectation. And Solomon steps into the throne. He takes the royal robe in a moment where Israel ultimately is flourishing. What we're going to see today is that there's a transition that happens not necessarily in his life, but right after his life. We'll see that later on in the sermon. But for the majority of his reign, it's pretty good. But one thing that's interesting about King Solomon is that some of you know this, some of you may not, but in 1 Kings chapter 3, God comes to Solomon and says, hey, Solomon, what is it that you would want? What do you want? Like as a king, what do you want? And King Solomon asked for what? He asked for wisdom. God is surprised by this, it seems like. It's this moment where like God is like, whoa, wisdom. Wasn't expecting that. And because you asked for wisdom, I'm not only going to give you wisdom, but I'm also going to give you riches. I'm going to make you the wisest person in all the world, but I'm also going to make you the wealthiest person in all the world. Because you didn't ask for riches, and because you didn't ask for revenge on your enemies, you didn't ask for the heads of your enemies. And so King Solomon asked for wisdom, and I think that's the first step to wisdom. And I hope that we, in our search for wisdom in life, which by the way, if you're not searching for wisdom, you need to. Our world is full of people who are clearly not searching for wisdom. And their life is not better because of it. You can look at a person's life typically and go, I wonder if they're on the path for the pursuit of wisdom. And 9 times out of 10, I'm going to say 9 times out of 10, they're not, okay? And that's hard. A long time ago, a friend of mine gave me a really small moleskin, like the pocket edition one. And he said, hey, my challenge to you as you go into ministry is everything that you hear that is wise, write it down in that. Now, there have been seasons where I'm better at it, seasons where I'm not great at it. But I've been in ministry now full-time for 11 years. The journal's not full, okay? You're going to go throughout your days, and you're going to hear a lot of stuff, a lot of things, but you might hear little wisdom. Wisdom is easy to find if you're looking for it. Proverbs promises us that. But it's also, again, not a pursuit that most people are on. My hope and my prayer is that you would enter into that pursuit. Solomon was very wise. He authored approximately 3,000 proverbs and 1,005 songs. That's what 1 Kings 4:32 tells us. His insight spanned wide in ranges of like philosophy and morality, but botany and zoology. He had crazy gardens and owned all these animals, these crazy exotic things. And then kings and queens, including Queen Sheba, traveled from thousands of miles just to sit at his feet and learn from him and hear his teachings, okay? I mean, the guy was renowned. He was famous, and so we're going to see that throughout our time today. Solomon asks for wisdom, but God gives him many other things. And so what I want to do is I want to look at this moment where with all of the things he has, and all of the money that he has, he seeks after pleasure. Because when you have a lot of money, you can seek after pleasure in any way you want, any form you want. And he does, and there's a lot that we're going to learn from it in just a moment. But let me open us up in prayer. Father, I pray that for the rest of our time today, I pray that you would center our hearts on you, that you would focus our hearts on you. God, I pray that we would see just where pleasure can lead us, and I pray that we would also find the path to real happiness, to real comfort and meaning and fulfillment in life. And God, I pray that we would learn lessons from the carrot chaser Solomon and where he went with it with pleasure. I pray that if we're not on a path to pursue wisdom, I pray that that would start today for everybody here. And I pray that you would make us wise people. We love you, Lord. That's all as we pray in the name of your son, Jesus. Amen. Okay, go ahead and open up your Bibles, and we're going to go to the table of contents. We do this every week. We try to go to the same place, the same starting place. And so if you have a digital Bible or a physical Bible, go to the table of contents. By the way, if you don't have the YouVersion Bible app, I encourage you to download it. If you need help with that, you just let me know, or someone else here can help you. It's an incredible Bible app, and it's a go-to for many of us. So we're going to go to the book of Ecclesiastes, all right? And we're going to go to Ecclesiastes chapter 2. This entire book, it's a book in the Old Testament. There you'll see in the table of contents. We're going to go to chapter 2, and this entire book is centered around the life lessons that Solomon has learned. He's written this book towards the very end of his kingship, the very end of his reign. And here's the thing, like, pay attention to someone who's achieved everything in life, and then they have something to tell you after they have achieved it. This past weekend, there was a NFL draft, and one of the surprising things was Shedeur Sanders went 5th round. He didn't go in the top 5 picks. Some people expected him to go in the top 5 picks. And what was interesting was he started a company called Legendary before he was ever drafted. And then he had like an entire draft room, and he had a trophy case built that's empty that will one day hold all the trophies and awards that he believes he's going to get. And he went 144th pick, 5th round, okay? Don't pay attention to him. The reason I say that is because when people claim that they're going to be something great and big before they've ever done anything, don't listen to them. That's not Solomon. Solomon has done it all. Like, he's done it all. He's owned it all. He's built it all, as we're going to see in a little bit. He's drank it all. He's slept with it all. But he's done it all. And so at the end of the day, we're going to listen to a guy who's lived his entire life. He's lived his entire life. And he's, done big and great things. We're going to learn from him. Okay, Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verses 1 through 2. Here we go. I said to myself, come on, let's try pleasure. Let's look for the good things in life. If you're taking notes, go ahead and write down good things. Because the reality is, everybody in here on some level, you're looking for the good things in life. You want to be a man or a woman who has grasped, held on to the good things in life. Now for you, I don't know what that is. If I ask you what is the good thing in life, maybe you're thinking like a weekend at my lake house. Maybe you're thinking, a trip to Cancun. Maybe you're thinking just a good conversation with my grandma. I don't know what you're thinking, but the good things in life is what he's after. He says, but I found that this too was meaningless. We're going to key on this word in just a moment because he uses it over and over again. So I said, laughter is silly. What good does it do to seek pleasure? Okay, this word that he uses, he keeps talking about this word, keeps using this word meaningless. And the actual word is the word havel. The actual Hebrew word is the word havel. And it means this. It means emptiness or futility, uselessness, lack of content, breath, or vapor. What's interesting is I think he uses this word, and it has many meanings, but he really uses it interchangeably with these different meanings. Sometimes he's talking about things that are just useless. Other times he's talking about things that are meaningless or futile. But there are other times where he's talking about things that are just here and they're gone. They're like a breath or a vapor, empty or lacking in content. One time I interviewed this girl for an administrator position, okay? I would never give her name, and she doesn't go here. You'll probably never meet this girl. But she interviewed for this position, the position that now Michael holds. And we were in the interview process, and she said to me, I'm at the interview in Caldy's, and she says to me, she goes, hey, so you guys are the church that meets over in Maryland Heights. And I said, no, we've always met in Kirkwood or Sunset Hills, but we're in Kirkwood now. And she goes, no, you're in Maryland Heights. And I go, no, I'm the lead pastor of the church. I was like, I'm not just like, I'm the lead pastor. I go, we meet in Maryland Heights. And she goes, well, then you probably weren't there when they did meet in Maryland Heights, because it was before they met in Maryland Heights. And I go, no, let me assure you, I actually planted the church. I've never left the church. I've always led the church every day of every year. And so no, actually, like we don't meet in Maryland Heights, we meet in Kirkwood. And she said, I hate to tell you this, but you're wrong. The church meets in Maryland Heights. And I should have ended the interview then. To be honest with you, what I did was, I swear to you, I was sitting and I stood up and I looked around. Because I'm not joking, I really did. Because I was like, I am getting punked. My friends are punking me so hard right now. And I started laughing, I stood up, I looked around, I could see nobody, and I realized this is reality. And then it was worse. So then I sat down and she looked at me weird because I stood up. And so I sat down, and I should have ended the interview, but I was like, let's see where this thing goes. Like, I'm along for the ride, okay? Saddle up, partner. This is going to get good. And it got better, okay? That's another story for another time. If you have interview stories like that, I want to hear it. But here's the thing. If I'm not trying to be mean, I'm just being honest. She was lacking in content. There wasn't the content that needed to be there for the job. It wasn't there. havel, okay? There was some emptiness for what we were looking for. It wasn't there. She was lacking in content. Meaningless, Solomon cries. He says it's all meaningless. Nothing matters. It's empty. It's lacking in content. It's futile. I'm looking after pleasure, and I cannot find it. It's a vapor. It's here today. It's gone tomorrow. There's no happiness, no contentment to be found in pleasure. He didn't find happiness and pleasure, and I need to say this, and you need to hear this, neither will you. You won't either. You think you will, but you won't. Ecclesiastes 2:3 says, after much thought, I decided to cheer myself with wine. And while still seeking wisdom, I clutched at foolishness. In this way, I tried to experience the only happiness most people find during their brief life in this world. So he goes after something to alter his mind and his mood. But what's interesting is, as he's going after much wine, he's drinking. And by the way, we would say this at Redemption, if you can go back and listen to some of our sermons, like drinking is not a sin. If you want to drink and not get drunk, good for you. The only thing we see in Scripture that is a sin is drunkenness. In fact, wine is considerably, constantly used as a blessing from the Lord to his people. But getting drunk is an issue. Solomon is not. He's not doing this in moderation. In fact, he does nothing in moderation. You're going to see that. That's his lack of wisdom at times. And so he gives himself over to wine. But what's interesting about this is he says, while still clutching at wisdom, while still going after wisdom, he says clutching foolishness, but while still seeking wisdom, while still going after wisdom, he is drinking. It sounds to me like he's a functioning alcoholic, doesn't it? He's going after education. He's going after wisdom. He's trying so hard to do it both, and he can't. It's Margarita Monday and Tipsy Tuesday and Whiskey Wednesday and Thirsty Thursday. It's Faded Friday and Sauce Saturday and Sunday Fun Day. And at the end of the day, he's trying so hard to be wise, and he can't find the happiness in the wisdom. He can't find the happiness in the drinking. He didn't find it there. And again, neither will you, right? Okay, Ecclesiastes 2:4. He says, I also tried to find meaning by building huge homes for myself and by planting beautiful vineyards. I made gardens and parks, filling them with all kinds of fruit trees. I built reservoirs to collect the water to irrigate my many flourishing groves. Hang on a second. By the way, you can still see his reservoirs today. I should have got a picture of it. I actually thought this morning, I was like, why did I put a picture up there? You can just look up. You can actually, I don't even care if you do it right now. Google Solomon's reservoirs. Like, find it on your phone. We all have little screens. You find it on your phone, like ChatGPT it, Google it, whatever. Solomon's reservoirs. It's crazy. He built these things thousands and thousands of years ago, and they're still there today. And so he has so many plants. He has so many things he has to build reservoirs to water his stuff. I have a watering can, right? I mean, it's this big for my 20 house plants. I have a lot of house plants. I'm trying to be like Solomon in botany. I got 20 house plants. I have a watering can this big, okay? He had a lake, okay? You see what I'm saying? Okay. Verse 7. I bought slaves, both men and women, and others were born into my household. I also owned large herds and flocks, more than any of the kings who had lived in Jerusalem before. He had kingdoms. He built kingdoms, and kingdoms have buildings, and they have boundaries, and they have walls, and they have customs and cultures, and he plants these beautiful groves and vineyards, and gardens so big and so great that he has to water them. He built kingdoms, and in building kingdoms, he couldn't find happiness in his kingdoms, and neither will you. We work so hard to build a kingdom in our life. And what we're going to find out about Solomon's kingdom is that it was shortly lived. It didn't last long. I think what's interesting, one of the more sinister things about building a kingdom in our world today is that you might be building a kingdom that's currently being blessed. But in the back of your mind, you're going, I know this is not what the Lord wants me to do. Or even, and maybe it's like, it's an amoral thing. It's you can do it. It's not wrong. It's good. Maybe it's not what God's calling you to do, but it's. But Others of you, you're building a kingdom and you go, no, I know that God does not want me to do this. I know. Like, this is beyond the boundaries of morality. This is sketchy at best. I'm building this kingdom, and yet it's being blessed. The only real explanation for that is that God is setting you up for a downfall so that he can teach you a lesson later, or that the ruler of this world, which, by the way, we know in Scripture is Satan, the ruler of this world is blessing you. He's allowing you to build a kingdom that he will then tear down, not for a lesson, not for a teaching moment in your life, but for your utter destruction. There's this quote, these lyrics from one of my favorite songs, this band called My Epic, the song Sound and Fury. They so poetically say, "Quick, tear your kingdom down. You've built it on another's field. He is a ruthless man. He'll let you build before he steals." And then this part of the lyric, right? "You will never know you weren't a king until your limbs are firmly fastened in their chains." We build kingdoms. And often in building the kingdom that we're building, the kingdom that God didn't bless, that God didn't call you to, you build a kingdom, and in building it, you're locking yourself in the chains that will one day destroy you. To him and her with ears, let him hear. Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verse 8. "I collected great sums of silver and gold, the treasure of many kings and provinces. I hired wonderful singers, both men and women, and many beautiful concubines. I had everything a man could desire." He can't stop, right? More, more, more. I have to have more. It's the God of more. I don't have enough. I have to have more. More money, more entertainment, more buildings, more kingdoms, more. Just one more dollar, one more plant, one more animal, one more slave, one more building, one more. He says, "So I became greater than all who had lived in Jerusalem before me, and my wisdom never failed me." He also became a liar because his wisdom did fail him at times. Greater than all others. He's the goat, if you will. He says he became greater than all the others. He's the greatest of all time. He's the goat. I mean, and people believe this, and they see him, and they're like, no, he's the wisest. Queen Sheba's coming from way out in the east to come and hear him, and people are bowing down to him to listen to his teachings, and he's got all the money in the world, and he's got the most beautiful women in the world around him, and all the slaves, and he's got all the workers and all the things, and he's the most powerful person in the world. But let me ask you this. What comes to your mind when you think of Ethan the Ezrahite? What comes to your mind when you think of the sons of Mahol, Haman, Calcol, and Darda? Nothing? Oh, that's awkward. Okay. Sorry. I thought somebody in here would know of them. I thought somebody in here would have heard their names and would know of them. Because in 1 Kings chapter 4, verses 29 through 31, it says, "God gave Solomon very great wisdom and understanding and knowledge, as vast as sands of the seashore. In fact, his wisdom exceeded that of all the wise men of the East and wise men of Egypt." Verse 31, "He was wiser than anyone else, including Ethan the Ezrahite." That wise dog, you know? In the sons of Mahol, Heman and Calcol and Darda. He was wiser than them. The goats. His fame spread throughout the surrounding nations. Solomon, he was the wisest, richest, and most famous, but he was wiser than Ethan the Ezrahite and the sons of Mahol. Haman, Calcol, and Darda. Are you kidding me? Those guys? I mean, they're like the Gretzky and the Jordan and the, right? I mean, they're the Tiger Woods. I mean, what? This is crazy. They're the Muhammad Ali's or Tyson's or whatever. I mean, that's wild. Here's the thing. You don't remember Ethan the Ezrahite or the sons of Mahol because it doesn't matter how great you are. They were forgotten. And you will be too. In 100 years from now, no one will ever remember your name. They won't remember it. I'll prove it to you. If anybody in here can list out their 4 great-great-great-grandparents, or 4 of their great-great-great-grandparents, afterwards, I'll give you $20. I will, because you can't. I made sure not to say 100 or whatever, because there might be an historian in here or something. It might be your weird hobby to remember dead people in your family lineage. But here's the thing. You can't remember them, and nobody's going to remember you. One of my favorite quotes, I forget who said it, but he said, I want to preach the gospel, die, and be forgotten. All that matters outside of eternity is right here and right now. Now, what matters ultimately is eternity. But beyond that, nobody's going to remember you or what you've ever done. Welcome to church. Ecclesiastes 2, verse 10. This is the crux of what we're saying today. This right here is the carrot, okay? This right here. I'm going to hold this while I read this. This is great. Here we go. He says, anything I wanted, I would take. I denied myself no pleasure. I even found great pleasure in hard work, a reward for all my labors. But as I looked at everything I had worked so hard to accomplish, it was all so havel, meaningless, like chasing the wind. There was nothing really worthwhile anywhere. Anything he ever wanted, he took. Anything he ever desired was his. He saw it, he wanted it, he took it, he went after it. And here's the beauty is he says, anything I wanted, I took. Well, that's stealing, right? Socialism, that's, it's not good, okay? We shouldn't steal, we shouldn't just take. But he also, in this moment, he also believes in this kind of this meritocracy. No, he's going to earn it. He's going to work for it. Because he says, yes, I deny myself no pleasure, but I even found great pleasure in hard work. He worked hard to find happiness. He worked hard to find meaning and purpose, contentment and fulfillment. And so even in that, he found this meritocracy. If you earn it, you deserve it to keep it. Good for him. But it didn't matter. None of it mattered. My grandfather worked at Morton Salt for 35 years before he retired. My father worked there as well for nearly 30 years before a back injury that he sustained maybe 15, 20 years into his work at the factory finally caused him to be disabled. My dad's had 13 back surgeries and a bunch of issues, has a permanent pain stimulator installed in his body to keep him from being in constant pain. And, Morton Salt, that's where they worked. And when it rains, it pours. That's the slogan for Morton Salt, but it was very apropos for my father and his injury. And then I worked there for 3 summers during college. And by the way, now there's a rule at Morton Salt that college students cannot drive forklifts because yours truly. Yeah, it's true. I'll tell you that story later. I still don't think it was my fault. Anyway, that's the lack of wisdom in me probably. So I worked at Morton Salt there, and I worked on the 100-pound bag line. And so basically what it was I took a bag about yay big, and I opened it up, put it underneath a chute, flicked a lever with my thumb, held onto the bag, and basically 1 second later, 100 pounds comes into the bag, slams down on a belt, and I had to take the bag, turn, put it on 100 pounds, right? Take it, turn, put it on a conveyor belt down the sewer and sew the top of the bag, then take the bag, flatten it out, put it on a pallet, and I had to raise, the pallet up, go to the pallet wrapper, wrap it, go drive it and then that's where all the disaster happened to the driving. Anyway, so I worked there for 3 summers and made amazing money, like $14.75 an hour. I mean, now I heard of a girl getting $25 for babysitting, but I mean, back then, $14.75, I mean, it was a big deal. So I paid through a lot of my college that way. And my first week at Morton Salt, I walk into the break room at lunch, and there's a cake on the table. And there's a guy's name on the cake, and it says, thank you for, and it gives us certain numbers, like 30-some years, for your service. And this man was standing there, and everybody was praising him for his service. He worked 30 plus years, gave himself over to the gods of Morton Salt to fulfill their ultimate goal, their mission and vision to get salt to people. And 30 plus years he worked there, and so everybody cheered, and they were so excited for him, and for all the trade-offs of the overtime and the PTO and the occasional pay raise and all the hard work that he put in, decades of his life. You know what they gave him as he left? A watch. Yeah, that's what companies used to do. Maybe they still do it, but a watch. And of course it had their logo on it, centered, right? Because who doesn't want their company logo on the watch that they're getting from their company to remind them of the 30-some years that they sunk into this company? This man poured decades of his life into this company, and he was given a watch, and he was on his second marriage, and his kids didn't like him. And I wonder how much that free watch cost him everything. I wonder how much the building of his kingdom and the hard work that he put in, and all the time and all the energy and all the effort, it was free, but was it? Everything in our life comes at a cost. Solomon had it all. He had wisdom and power and riches and all the pleasure that he could ever want. In fact, he had so much stuff, he had to build something, or he created something, invented something of sorts called store cities. He had to store all the things that he owned in cities, entire cities that ran with bakeries and delis and grocery stores and gas stations and blacksmith shops and leatherworking shops and stables and lumber yards, all to store his things. Could you imagine living in a city like Kirkwood and go, like, what's our purpose here in Kirkwood? We store the king's things. You know, it's crazy. Solomon, he had it all. He was like a cartoon character. Like, you have a ficus tree, right? Solomon had an arboretum. You know, you have a golden doodle named Penny and a worthless cat, right? Solomon had thousands of acres and thousands of animals and ranches. You have a kitchen remodel this summer, but Solomon had castles and palaces, cities to store his things. You own a company that employs 20 or 25 people. Good for you. Solomon employed 30,000 people. You're planning a hamburger cookout this summer for all the neighbors that you like, because you know the ones you don't like, you ain't inviting them, okay? For a little hamburger cookout for all the neighbors that you like. And Solomon, he threw a party one time, and he served at that party. He served 22,000 cows, not 22,000 ribeyes, 22,000 cows, and by the way, 150,000 sheep he served. His annual income with inflation was roughly $1 billion in gold alone. That's $2,740,000 per day in gold alone. He had so much silver in the world, he crashed the silver market. It was worthless. Historians and other texts talk about that silver was like a rock. It's just worthless because Solomon had it all. So it didn't matter anymore. It wasn't able to be traded anymore. He's a cartoon character. Like, if we didn't know any better, like, somebody just invented him, right? Like, when I was a kindergartner, I wrote a book about a blueberry muffin that crossed a rainbow road into the land of cotton candy. It won awards. It went to the governor's competition thing in Ohio, and it won an award. And I had to illustrate it. My dad and I did it together. We wrote it. It was before ChatGPT, so it was all mine. Okay. And in all my kindergarten creativeness, I couldn't come up with Solomon. Like, he's a cartoon character. People, I mean, if you took a bunch of kindergartners and you got them around and you're like, okay, like, let's create this guy. And they're like, yeah, let's make him like married, like super married. Like, yeah, like 10 wives. And they're like, no. Like 30? No. 500? No, double it. 1,000. Okay. Hey, like, let's make him really rich. Like, he probably has like $100 in his piggy bank. No, well, a lot. I mean, I think like the most money in the world. Oh, like $1,000? Kids, you know. No, not $1,000. Oh, okay. $1 trillion. No, trillion. Double it. $2 trillion. Oh, and let's give him 12,000 horses and a big lake to water all of his plants. Like the guy's a cartoon character. He has everything. But if we didn't know better, he's not trying to be the wealthiest, richest, most powerful person in the world. If we didn't know any better, we would think that he's trying to be God. We would think that he's on the path of deity. Jean-Paul Sartre says this. He says, man is the being whose project is to be God. Man is the being whose project is to be God. How foolishness. What happens to Solomon's wealth? I'm going to hit this real quick. Rehoboam happens. His son happens. Consequently, he loses everything. Rehoboam's a cautionary tale of not going for wisdom, not trying to be a wise person, of indulging yourself with everything you want, of not having military conquests or anything like that as a king. And what happens is in his 5th year, in 926 BC, this king, Egyptian king Shishak, comes after him and takes everything. And so this royal thug, Shishak, takes all of his money 5 years in. It took 40 years for Solomon to build everything. In 5 years, the next generation, his offspring, the fruit of his loins, destroyed. 5 years. For many of you, you're like, please, I hope my kids don't destroy everything that I've built because I feel like it might happen. In 2005, Tom Brady had 3 Super Bowl rings. He had multiple league and Super Bowl MVP trophies. And this is in the middle of his career. He's on a 60 Minutes interview, and he says this. He says, why do I have 3 Super Bowl rings and think that there's something else there for me? There's got to be more than this. He looked longingly at the camera and looked into the eyes of the reporter, of the interviewer, and he said, there's got to be something more than this. Then he says, what else is there for me? And the interviewer is like, you have everything. Like you have the rings, you have the trophies, the championships. You're married to a Victoria's Secret model. Like, I mean, you know what I mean? Like anything that in America, you have all the money, you have whatever you want. You could retire now and still be argued as the GOAT. But he didn't stop. He continued. He has 7 Super Bowl championships. He has 5 Super Bowl MVPs, and he continues to go on. The most career wins by a starting quarterback, the most Super Bowl appearances, and on, the most MVPs and all these things, okay? But we don't have to just look at Tom Brady. We can look at Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey says this. He says, I think that everyone should get rich and famous and do everything that they've ever dreamed of so that they can see that it's not the answer. We can look at Brad Pitt. He says, I know I'm the guy who has everything, but I'm telling you, once you get everything, you're just left with yourself. It doesn't help you sleep any better. Lady Gaga says, I have all the things that people dream of, fame, fortune, attention, but I'm lonely. I'm miserable in my own house. Russell Brand says, all of us are seeking something, alcohol, fame, sex, drugs, but the real need we have is for connection. I was spiritually bankrupt. That's before he comes to Christ. You should look at him now. It's awesome to see what the Lord's doing in Russell Brand's life. Andre Agassi says, winning changes nothing. Now that I've won some tournaments, I've realized that the void inside me is still there. Build your kingdom. Build your empire. And it's going to leave you empty, lonely, broken, spiritually bankrupt, looking for more and wondering, there has to be something else for me. There has to be something else better for me. Solomon, Lady Gaga, Tom Brady, Jim Carrey, Andre Agassi, Brad Pitt, they're all after the same thing. Ultimately, they're after meaning, they're after significance, but they're also after comfort. Comfort. The search for comfort often comes with a temptation of more. But it doesn't come from not having. It doesn't come from not having enough. It doesn't come from not having what you need. It doesn't come from not currently living in abundance. The idea of the temptation of more and the temptation of comfort comes from a lack of gratitude. It comes from a lack of peace and happiness of what God currently has given you. Solomon was blessed with everything, and he wasn't happy. And this carrot that he's chasing is not a new carrot. It's an old carrot. It's from the garden. Let me show you. In Genesis chapter 2, verses 8 and 9, it says this. Then the Lord God planted a garden in Eden in the east, and there he placed the man he had made. The Lord God made all sorts of trees grow up from the ground, trees that were beautiful and that had produced delicious fruit In the middle of the garden, he placed the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. In the middle of the garden. What does that mean? What it means is this. Adam and Eve had to walk past every yes that God gave them to find the one no that he prohibited. They had to walk past all of the blessings, all of the things that he already blessed them with. He had to walk past all of the yeses. They had to walk past all of the yeses to find the one no that he prohibited. They had to walk past all of their blessings to find their one burden. And by the way, their burden, that was their lifelong burden, actually became the lifelong burden of all mankind. Because through them, sin entered the world. So let me ask you this. Is what you're running after running you? Is what you're running after, the carrot you're chasing, is what you're running after running you? Or let me ask you this in a different way, or say it in a different way. Don't let what you most want become what you most regret. Don't let what you most want become what you most regret. So then what? So then what do we do? If we're not going to chase pleasure, if we're going to seek happiness, fulfillment, contentment, like how do we get it? Our series verse is Matthew 6:33. It says, but seek first the kingdom, and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Solomon chased every carrot, and at the end of the day, he said, Havel. It's meaningless, like chasing after the wind. It's empty, it's futile, it lacks in content. And yet, in the very end of Ecclesiastes, after all the chasing and experiments and indulgence and the exhaustion of his soul, it says this in Ecclesiastes 12:13. Now all has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments. For this is the duty of all mankind. In other words, you were made for something greater. The deepest pleasure isn't in chasing more, it's in knowing him. The richest wealth isn't in storing gold, it's storing treasures in heaven. The greatest success isn't in building your kingdom, it's in joining his. What if the pleasure you seek isn't found in the next promotion, partner, project, portfolio, but it's found in the person of Jesus? In John 10:10, Jesus says, I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. And the Greek word for full is parasos. It means overflowing, abundant, beyond, not havel, not empty. My prayer and my hope is that you will join Jesus on his mission, in his calling for you, and that you will find a full life, a parasos, not a havel. That you will find an overflowing and abundant life, and not one that's empty. God, I pray that in this church, you would create us to seek the pleasures that you have for us. I pray that we would not go to the no's that you have prohibited, but instead I pray that all the yeses that you have given us, you've granted for us, you've blessed us with. God, I pray that we would seek pleasure in those things. That's where the ultimate pleasure comes from. Satan is a trickster. He tricked Adam and Eve at the middle of the garden to grab onto something that was not for them. So God, I pray that we wouldn't fall into that age-old trick from Satan today. I pray that we wouldn't chase that carrot, but instead, I pray that we would chase pleasure in you and in you alone the way that you call us to. God, be with us. Give us the strength to do that and make it so.